The hoax is that he caused it. The Democrats are out here saying, all of human history started in January of 2025. They seem to have forgotten the last 4 years, and I think Trump's going to have to remind people we were in a very big mess that we inherited.
It's not just Democrats that are blaming Trump for the economy, though. It's the voters. And for the first time in Trump's political career, you are seeing Democrats have an edge on the economy after this last year.
In today's video, Scott Jennings' right-wing narrative gets exposed and destroyed on CNN's The Arena. On the surface, Trump is trying to sell a victory lap, touting accomplishments, previewing priorities, and insisting everything is on track. But underneath that speech is a Republican Party showing visible cracks, slipping poll numbers on the economy, and a president who suddenly sounds a lot less like an outsider and a lot more like someone defending the status quo. So let's dive in and watch how Scott Jennings gets shut down on CNN's The Arena.
A major national address by President Donald Trump from the White House. The president expected to highlight what he sees as his accomplishments in his first year in office and to preview his priorities for 2026. But ahead of his big speech, the president's party appears to be fracturing over some of the most important issues ahead of the midterm elections. Today, 4 Republicans joined with Democrats to force a vote on a 3-year extension of Obamacare subsidies. Soon I'm going to be joined live by one of those Republicans, Congressman Ryan McKenzie. It's so bad that now Speaker Mike Johnson is having to publicly say, quote, "I have not lost control of the House," end quote. Then there's the economy. New polling shows the president's economic approval hit a new low of 36%. And of course, there's Jeffrey Epstein. Tomorrow is the deadline for the Justice Department to release the Epstein files. The only reason that's happening is because almost every single Republican in both the House and the Senate voted for it, despite immense pressure from President Trump. All of that leading to this warning from someone who, until very recently, was one of President Trump's biggest supporters.
I think the dam is breaking. You're seeing Republicans, they're entering the campaign phase for 2026, which is a large signal that lame duck season has begun and that Republicans will go in all in for themselves in order to save their own reelections.
So is the dam breaking? Is President Trump losing his grip on Republicans? All right, my panel's here in the arena. CNN political analyst, national political reporter for Axios, Alex Thompson. CNN political commentator, Jonah Goldberg. Democratic strategist, former director of message planning in the Biden White House, Megan Hayes. And CNN senior political commentator, Scott Jennings. Thank you all very much for being here. I want to talk about the president's address tonight. Of course, there is this backdrop of the healthcare fight. But Scott Jennings, I know you spent most of the day at the White House. I think my big question is, would the president be doing this if his polls were good? Because they're not great.
Well, I mean, what would the Democrats be doing if their polls weren't great, which they aren't? 18% approval rating for the Democratic Party in the Quinnipiac poll. Trump's a smidge higher than that. But yes, I did spend the day at the White House, did my radio show over there. What do I expect out of the president tonight? I think 15 to 20 minutes laying out what he inherited when he got here. I don't expect new,
so like blaming Biden,
major new policy proposals. I also don't expect war with Venezuela tonight. I know some people are kicking that around, but I think he's going to lay out the stark differences of opinion about how to run the country between what they inherited and what they want to do. It's the beginning of going into the election and making a case about why what he's doing is going to put us on the right track. So I don't expect massive new ground to be broken, but I do expect a pretty sharp argument from the president, us versus them, and why what the Republicans are doing is better.
What really jumps out to me here is how much spin has to be applied just to make this moment sound normal. When a president is genuinely riding high, they don't need a primetime reset speech framed as explaining what they inherited. That's usually what leaders do when the public isn't buying the results. Historically, presidents with strong economic numbers lean into specifics: wage growth, household purchasing power, consumer confidence, not vague contrast with the previous administration. And right now, those bread and butter indicators are where this White House is weakest. Take the economy alone. While inflation may not be at its pandemic peak, prices are still materially higher than they were when Trump took office, and real wages for many working class Americans haven't caught up. The Federal Reserve's own data shows that rent, groceries, insurance premiums, and utilities remain the biggest pressure points, exactly the things voters feel every month. That's why you're seeing economic approval sink even among independents, not just Democrats. It's not a messaging failure, it's a lived experience problem. And the idea that this is just normal election year positioning ignores something more structural. The party itself is splintering in public. You don't see 4 members of your own caucus crossing the aisle on a core healthcare issue unless they're already reading the tea leaves back home. Obamacare subsidies are wildly popular, including with Republican voters, and multiple studies from KFF show that letting them expire would raise premiums for millions. Those Republicans didn't defect out of ideology, they defected out of self-preservation. Then there's the Epstein files, which are a political landmine no amount of rhetorical reframing can diffuse. If everything were under control, you wouldn't see overwhelming bipartisan votes forcing transparency against the president's wishes.
Megan Hayes, you've been in these rooms when presidents have decided they're going to try to do something like this to take control of the news cycle. Why might a president do something like this?
Exactly, to change the narrative. He's losing the narrative here on many different fronts. His own party is breaking with them. The whole story with Congress, people are now having to decide whether they're going to bend the knee to Trump or whether they're going to save their own reelection. So this is why you do this. It's kind of amazing to me that all the networks are taking this live. Most of the time you have to lay it out. And if there isn't something that's like up for national importance, most networks would not take something live in prime. So that's an interesting thing that they are doing that.
But to your point, Casey, unless you are declaring a war or announcing that you killed Osama bin Laden, usually you only do this when things are going poorly. I mean, you look back at Jimmy Carter and the Malaise speech. There's up-to examples of you call this when you are trying to try to reset. And the thing is that Donald Trump has not proposed any new legislation or big legislative packages in order to try to change, the economy in the country. The inside the White House, the mantra is wait till Q1. Wait till Q1. That means the next quarter of 2026, and they believe that the legislation they've already passed will, and the interest rates coming down will sort of kickstart the economy. But who knows?
Yeah, Jonah Goldberg. I mean, the latest poll of polls has Trump's latest approval rating sitting at 39%, with a 58% disapproval rating. We know the president is obsessed with polls, or historically has been obsessed with polls. How much does this explain it?
I think it probably explains a lot of it. I think if Scott's right, and no reason to think he's not, it's smart for Trump to try and do this. Try to get his hands around the affordability thing. He really dragged his feet on doing it. The problem is, Trump is a really gifted guy politically when he's the outsider taking on the establishment, and he has natural advantages when he's the insider and the president, as he was in the first term when everything was going really, really well. He is not good at defending the status quo. We saw that during COVID, and I think we're seeing it now because he can't stay on a really disciplined message about the things that he needs to stay on.
Scott, do you get the sense that this is really going to be, I mean, you keep saying that they're going to talk about what they inherited. America, this guy's been president for a year now. I mean, at what point does that fall flat with people?
I don't know. Obama blamed George W. Bush for 8 years. I mean, look, there has to be a debate. We're going to have an election, so we're going to have a debate. And right now you have Democratic Party with an 18% approval rating, with some kind of amnesia about what they did to support Joe Biden's destruction of the American economy for 4 years. He can't let that go. I mean, if we're going to have an election and have a debate, you have to lay out what we're for and what we're doing, what we inherited. They got the shovels, we got the ladder.
The polling problem isn't abstract. When you see approval hovering in the high 30s while disapproval is pushing towards 60, that's not partisan noise. That's independents peeling off. Pew and Gallup both show that affordability, not ideology, is what drives those swings. Voters don't care who inherited what. If rent is still up 20% since 2021, insurance premiums are climbing faster than wages, and grocery prices haven't meaningfully come down. Blaming the past only works when the present feels better, and for a lot of people it doesn't. What also undercuts the defense here is the lack of new policy muscle. Big speeches traditionally preview something tangible, a bill, a package, a major shift. But right now, the administration's own economic bet is basically wait until next year. That's a risky message in an election cycle. The Congressional Budget Office has already said most of the economic effects from recent legislation are modest in the short term, and rate cuts don't automatically translate into lower household costs when corporate pricing stays sticky. People feel the pain now, not in Q1 projections. The party fracture matters too. Members of Congress don't buck their leadership unless their internal polling is flashing red. The fact that Republicans are breaking ranks on healthcare subsidies tells you exactly what they're hearing from voters. These programs are popular, and cutting them would be political suicide. That's not Democrats setting a trap. That's reality forcing hands. And the Democrats destroyed the economy line only goes so far when job growth has slowed, unemployment has ticked up, and tariffs are quietly raising prices on everyday goods. Economists across the spectrum agree tariffs function like a consumer tax, hitting lower and middle income households hardest. You can't argue affordability while defending policies that make imported essentials more expensive. So when this debate circles back to narrative control, that's really the tell. If the administration were confident in results, the story would sell itself. Instead, what we're seeing is an attempt to reframe disappointment as misunderstanding.
I mean, that's the nature of a political campaign. I also think he's going to have to continue to sell the big, beautiful bill. The tax cuts, the deregulation, what they've done on energy, gas prices are low. And they do believe they are going to see an economic boom in the first quarter. I interviewed Kevin Hassett today. He and Bessent and the economic guys are very confident that the things they did this year are going to inure to their benefit in the new year. Again, this is part of selling what you've done to recover from the mess that you inherited. So I sort of view all this in the context of here comes the election, and we're not going to let the Democrats get away with blaming Trump for affordability when they're the ones that burned the house down in the first place.
But it runs into the problem of 2 weeks ago saying affordability was a hoax, right? I mean, like, your message is the right one if he started it in January. We inherited a mess.
The hoax is that he caused it. The Democrats are out here saying, you know, all of human history started in January of 2025. They seem to have forgotten the last 4 years, and I think Trump's going to have to remind people we were in a very big mess that we inherited.
It's not just Democrats that are blaming Trump for the economy, though. It's the voters. And for the first time in Trump's political career, you are seeing Democrats have an edge on the economy after this last year.
The problem is that voters don't grade presidents on projections. They grade them on what their bank account looks like today. And right now, real wages have been mostly flat for months when adjusted for inflation, while household debt is climbing again. Credit card balances are at record highs, and delinquency rates on auto loans and credit cards are ticking up, which economists almost always see as early warning signs of stress, not optimism. There's also this idea that gas prices being lower solves the affordability problem, but gas is only one line item. Shelter costs alone make up about a third of the CPI, and rent is still up roughly 18-20% compared to pre-2021 levels in many metro areas. Health insurance premiums are rising faster than inflation, and grocery prices, even when inflation slows, rarely go back down. That's why saying wait until Q1 doesn't land. People don't experience macroeconomic recovery the way White House economists do. On top of that, the claim that everything bad was inherited runs into a credibility wall when policies passed this year actively add cost pressure. Tariffs, even when framed as pro-worker, are widely understood by economists as regressive taxes. The Tax Foundation and Peterson Institute have both found that the majority of tariff costs are passed directly to consumers, especially on everyday goods. That makes it very hard to argue that affordability struggles are imaginary or someone else's fault. What really reinforces Alex's point, though, is the political behavior. You don't see members of the president's own party breaking ranks on healthcare subsidies if voters are buying the booming economy argument. Those subsidies poll well across party lines because people feel how expensive insurance still is. When politicians start protecting themselves instead of the agenda, it's usually because the message isn't sticking back home. And finally, the idea that voters are being misled by Democrats doesn't hold up when independent polling shows a shift in economic trust away from Trump himself. Pause. Are you getting tired of getting half the story from biased news sources? One outlet says one thing and another says the complete opposite. How are you supposed to know what's actually true? That's where ground news comes in. It lets you compare how different media outlets, left, right, and center, are covering the same story. So you can see the full picture instead of just the echo chamber. And here's the best part. Click the link in the description and get 40% off the Vantage tier, which gives you even deeper insights into media bias and political trends. Stay informed, think for yourself, and check out Ground News in the description down below.